So I recently did a poll on Instagram asking if people wanted a video where I explain how I animate. And since I've been getting a lot of questions, I thought, yeah, this would be a good idea. Luckily, the results were 98% yes. So here I am, explaining how I animate. Also, a company called GAOMON reached out to me and asked if I wanted to review one of their tablets, and I thought, hell yeah, that'd be such a cool thing to do. So in this video, I'm actually using that tablet to make this animation. The tablet they sent to me to review is the GAOMON S620. When you receive this tablet, you get a USB connecting wire, a battery-free pen stylus, Android phone adapters so you can use this tablet on your phone, the tablet itself with 4 assignable buttons, a 2-finger art glove, spare nibs and a nib remover, and an instruction booklet to help you set it up. Now you know what I'm working with, let's get on with the video. So I animate with Photoshop. If you have Photoshop, you can get the timeline at the bottom of the screen by going to Window and selecting Timeline. The first thing I do when I start an animation is change the frames per second from 30 to 24, though I do sometimes forget. You can change the frame rate by clicking the lines on the timeline and clicking Set Frame Rate. Then if I'm using a sound, I import the sound directly to the audio track. Then I start with a storyboard to help work out the timings and compositions of the shots that I want. With this particular storyboard, I actually did a little bit more detail than I usually do, because I was testing out the GAOMON tablet, since it was the first time I used it since I got it. When I first started using this tablet, I actually had to get used to it, since the tablet I usually use is a screen tablet, and it's a little bit of a jarring change. Probably should have done a warm-up before I started using it. Though it didn't really matter, because the storyboard is temporary anyway. And this is how it turned out.
Wilbur just DM'd me that I smell.
It's nothing beautiful, but it's just a placeholder. The next thing I do is I start with the line art. Me, in particular, I just go straight into drawing the characters. I don't even refine the pictures, but that's a personal preference. I start with the keyframes, following the storyboard, making sure the frames that are on the screen the longest look the best. When I first started doing digital art, I actually used something similar to the GAOMON tablet that I was using when I recorded this video, though it was still hard to get used to doing fine details with a little tablet, though after a while it did start coming back to me. Compared to the first tablet I used, this tablet is really similar. There's a large workspace, it's comfortable to rest your hand on. The only thing I didn't really like was the sound of the pen touching the tablet, though you could really just drown that out with music, which I did. And actually thinking back to the old tablet, it kind of does the same thing. One of the things I can think of that makes this tablet much better than the first one I used is the price. The first tablet my parents got me costed the equivalent of $138, compared to the GAOMON tablet costing $40. Considering they're practically the same quality, the GAOMON tablet is really good for its price. I don't even know if I'm saying GAOMON right. At this point I'm just too scared to ask. Anyway, I don't have much else to say about this section, so I'll just let you watch the process. This is what the animation looks like with just the keyframes.
Wilbur just DM'd me that I smell.
The next thing I do is I make the transitions between the keyframes smoother. I do this by hovering over the first keyframe, then using the tool that looks like scissors to split a bit off of it. With that new bit selected, I then go in with the select tool and move different parts of the picture around to make it look like a seamless transition between the two frames. Once I've done that, I go to the next frame and at the beginning I cut another bit off. And with that new frame I do the same thing but with the keyframe before it. After I've done that I go in with the brush tool and I just clean up things that look a bit off. And sometimes I add more motion where I think the frames are a little bit too still. You can see I did this at the end where I made Tommy look slightly towards ranboo. Sometimes using just this method doesn't really work. Sometimes it's best to create a whole new drawing in between these frames. And most of the time it makes it look so much better. It just takes more time than usual. After I've done all that, this is how it turned out.
Wilbur just DM'd me that I smell.
After I finish the lines, the next step is to start colouring. What I start with depends if I have a background or not. If I have a background, that's the one I start colouring first. If I don't, I just start colouring the characters. Halfway through colouring the first background, I decided I wanted to add some animation to it. So I did this a bit messy, but I converted the layer I was colouring on to a smart object. You can make a layer into a smart object by going to Filter, Convert to Smart Filters. Since I decided to do this after I had already started colouring, I had to copy the layers I had already created into the smart object. Once I did that, I finished colouring the background in the smart object so that I could animate different parts of it. I don't know what this bit is called, but there's a drop-down menu you can click on the layers on the timeline. It gives you the option of position, opacity and style. I've only used position and opacity, and I don't really know what style does. The basic premise is you create one keyframe somewhere, move it, and create another keyframe, then Photoshop does the motion bit for you. This is how I made the sun move downwards in a smooth motion. I repeated this process for the next two backgrounds, though for the last background all I did was copy and paste the first one and change it up a bit. This is what the animation looks like with just the background.
Wilbur just DM'd me that I smell.
The next thing I do is arguably the most tedious part of the process. I colour in each frame of the characters. If the frame after the one I just coloured is not that different, I'll just copy and paste it and change it a bit. This part of the process is basically just doing that over and over again. There's not much to say about it other than that. This is what it looks like when the characters are coloured.
Wilbur just DM'd me that I smell.
The last part of the process is just adding shading to the characters. I use a default soft edged brush and add basic shadows and light. Usually for the shadows I use the blending option multiply, and for the light it varies between lighten and overlay. Though honestly I could just use any blending option that makes a picture look good. Then after that I check if I've missed anything, add a watermark, and then I export it, ready to upload. This is the final outcome. This is what you would see.
Wilbur just DM'd me that I smell.
So yeah, that's the entire process, from start to finish. It's nothing too complicated, but it's all self-taught, so I hope this answered most of your questions, and if it didn't answer your question, leave a comment and I'll see if I can get to it. I also want to thank GAOMON for reaching out to me so I could review one of their tablets. This is honestly a really cool experience, and my overall thoughts on it were really fantastic. I didn't have any problems with it. If you wanted to have one of these tablets yourself, there's a link in the description to their website. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I'll be uploading the animation by itself, most likely this Wednesday. And if you enjoyed, please do leave a comment. I love reading comments, it's my favourite part of uploading. If you want more content from me, I upload here too, so come say hi. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good day. Bye!